I got some cool stuff to talk about, so I'm ready.
It's the Two Joes podcast coming at you on a Sunday evening. Hope everyone out there is being safe and is healthy. I'm joined by BigT and Mojo tonight. Let's get it started.
Welcome. Beautiful Salt Lake evening, isn't it? Just a perfect day. It was a perfect weekend, really.
I agree.
Yeah, tons of fun. Yeah. And, before we get into, updates from BigT and ourselves, just wanted to say what a perfect weekend this has been for me. We're all going a little bit stir crazy. How do we stay busy, keep ourselves occupied? And yesterday I hired one of my friends. She's been going through some rough times aside from COVID-19 with family and work and everything. And so I paid her an hourly rate to come up and help me do some spring cleaning. And I think I hired Wonder Woman because the things she got done around my house were just astounding in a short amount of time. It was a great Saturday. And now I'm sitting in my spotless estate and couldn't be any happier about the way it turned out. So I hope you guys had some fun this weekend too. How about you, Big T? What did you do this weekend?
Not much yesterday. Went on a bike ride today that was pretty awesome.
Very nice. Yeah, you have a favorite trail up there in Park City, or do you move it around a lot?
Since it's still pretty wet out, I was on the rail trail, which is a paved trail that runs all through Park City.
Okay, yeah. And you, Main Joe, did you get anything accomplished or get out of the house at all?
Yeah, I got out of the house a little bit. I went to Costco and I went to Smith's a couple times, so that was good. I like having a clean house. It's also good to have. It's a good feeling to have a full fridge. I know it kind of falls in the same category there.
Yeah, it's key. It's you mentioned a full fridge, and you remind me of one of my favorite authors, Sam Harris. And he was talking about the subject of what is happiness. Can you just decide to be happy? And he says, now imagine you're sitting here on an evening and you're watching a ball game and you got a fridge full of beer and there's no armies on the horizon ready to invade your town, but still you're unhappy. Why is that? Sit and think about that. And yeah, you immediately put me in mind. It's a secure feeling. It's a happy feeling. And we're all part of the 1% there for sure.
Yep.
Agreed.
People just need a good kick in the ass.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah. So let's catch up with Big T. Any changes on your work front? Any employees come back?
Yes, I got to bring an employee back starting tomorrow.
Okay, good for you. And you said it. Go ahead.
The business. I was really questioning if this week would be busier than last because last week was so good. Monday is every Monday is becoming our busiest Monday of the year every week. I have 500 orders looking at tomorrow.
And this is because of the lockdown. Mondays are so big for you now. Is that right?
Yeah. No one's working Saturdays and Sundays right now, so the hours build up for 2 days. So Monday's a busy day.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And did you get to pick and choose who was coming back, or did they tell you who's coming back?
Oh, I got to pick, but there was no shortage of drama over it because everyone has a different opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I'm sure of that. So, on a personal front, you're still symptom free. I'm guessing. Yes. Right on. So let's move on to something that surprised me recently is the stimulus checks that have been going out. I've talked with a number of people who have received some funds and about an equal number of people who haven't. Mm-hmm. So I did get some money direct deposited into my account, not the full $1,200, but I was just surprised to see anything going into my account. Have you guys gotten anything from the Treasury?
No.
Not as of yet.
Wow, interesting. Well, I'll give the amount. I got $275.60 put in my account because of this, and I'm just going to spend every bit of it at local restaurants over the next week or two.
Any idea as to why such a strange amount?
Yeah, they showed a mathematical chart, or a chart, I should say. If you make under like 51,000, you get the full 1,200. If you make under 60, you get this. Make under 100, you get this. So, and this is going to sound terrible and boastful of me, but I was above the cutoff to get anything. So it really surprised me that I got money in my account. I'm not drastically above, not like Bill Gates money, but so at least, the chart I saw, maybe they adjusted the chart after I saw it, that it's up a little bit. And I heard one young lady I worked with this week in Georgia, helping her install some software. She got the full amount. I mean, she's a highly educated, trained technical professional with specialized skill sets. So I'm not assuming she's, near poverty level wages. And she said she got the full 1,200. And I'm kind of thinking, guys, that this is our federal government just getting money out there, so people will go and buy a couch that they might not have been thinking, or go out to eat, or at least order in from Denny's or something like that, just to keep something moving through the system. And I guess I could see that.
I agree. Question: that's the people that you have heard who have got it. Is their names? Are they early in the alphabet? Because everybody that I know who got it, last name starts with an A, B, C, or D. It's pretty. I don't know if there's any rhyme or reason to the way they're sending the checks out.
It could be.
Great question. Great question. Okay, so yes, I'm immediately thinking the three people I'm thinking of, myself and the young lady in Georgia, her first and last name begin with a C. My last name, of course, begins with a B, and the other one last name begins with an A. So yeah, that well, at least I'm that small. Your theory is holding water. They're just going through the alphabet.
Because the people I know, yourself, another person whose last name starts with a B, another's with a D. I mean, it's all right up there in the first couple letters.
Yeah. Huh, interesting. It seems that they would just sort everybody by the amount of money they made last year and just start cutting checks starting at the bottom. It doesn't matter what their name is.
That would have been logical.
Yeah, that's true. We're talking government here. Yeah.
We got to teach them how to run a SQL statement and order it a little bit differently. Order it by yearly income versus last or first letter of their last name.
Yeah.
Let's get it to the people that need it. I mean, there are people out there in food lines, I saw some videos about those food lines we mentioned, I think, in the last podcast, where the food banks are being pushed to the limit.
Yeah. We did talk about those lines of cars we saw. I think one of them was like 4 miles long. People were waiting hours to just get a box of food to take home. Mm-hmm. And man, my first thought was, is this doctors? Is that like, a line of cars going to Yankee Stadium last year for a baseball game or something? Did somebody do a fake headline? But no, they've been interviewing some of the managers of these food banks, and they're just saying, we've never seen anything like this in our lifetime. Yeah. And it's unsettling. Again, that's where the three of us are in such a good spot. Is the grocery stores near me don't have any empty shelves other than toilet paper, and everything's going okay. I guess that means that we can still afford to buy food. These people waiting in line are that desperate. They cannot afford to go and spend $40 at a grocery store now. That's unsettling.
Yeah, and a lot of them were first timers, and it's so. Yeah, let's try and put ourselves in their shoes. It's like, okay, so would we be out there protesting to say, hey, let's get this economy going again? I can't deal with this. The stimulus check isn't coming. I have no food. I can't wait in a food line for hours. I need my job back, kind of thing. Great
debating point. Right there.
I watched some videos and I looked at the signs they were holding up, and I don't think I would hold up those signs per se, but I think I could see myself being out there protesting, saying, look, I need my job back. Let's get this thing rolling.
Yeah, what's your take, Big T? You supporting these protests, or you saying no, keep the lockdown in place until we're good? Where do you fall?
That's a tough question. Where I fall on that, expand testing. If someone wants to go work, let them get tested. If they test fine, let them go back to work.
Yeah, I can see that. And of course, while at work, take all the necessary precautions. And yeah, I can see that point of view.
I've heard some different viewpoints. People are like, if we don't get our economy up and going, it's going to hurt more and more people. It's going to destroy the country, which I get that. But how many lives are you going to risk by putting everybody back to work?
Yeah.
Yeah. Exact. What's the trade-off? And it seems so cold when we narrow it down to simply numbers of victims. But if restarting the economy kills one less person than not restarting, then I guess we've got to look at the math and say it was a good thing to do. It's a tough thing, and it kind of puts me in mind too of like baseball and basketball are such huge revenue generators, and people are stuck at home dying to watch some sports. The sports fans, hockey in Main Joe's case, and I'm thinking, I'm kind of wondering why hasn't the commissioner at least put forth the proposal for further study, to go ahead and start the NBA season up again in empty arenas. Test all the players and the refs and any support staff that are required, like scorekeepers and what have you. But go ahead and start playing in empty arenas. That doesn't seem to be too big of a risk in something like that. What do you guys think on that? You first, Big T.
Oh, I think they should do it. I'd sit down and watch that all day long. I've heard some, like I heard LeBron James say he wants no part playing in an empty stadium, that he feeds off the fans. So, the NBA's paying your salary, get on the court and play.
Yeah, and every fan that would be at the arena is going to be watching you at home. I mean, come on.
You're helping support people through this shit. Yeah. Play ball.
I think I remember hearing him say that, Big T, and that just didn't sound like he thought that one through very well. Or maybe he did, and he's just a prima donna, and he will not play unless there's 20,000 fans screaming his name in the same building. I don't know.
There's something to that.
Yeah. Do you think something similar could happen with hockey, Joe?
I think it could. I think they're considering it for sure. I mean, they were considering it before they decided to postpone the season. They were thinking about playing in empty stadiums and empty arenas. But yeah, it's a tough one, And on the one hand, you could go ahead and open it back up, but that doesn't mean everyone's going to come rushing out of their house to go resume life as normal. I know I'm not just yet. I mean, we're still on the top part of that curve. I mean, there are glimmers of hope. New York City is having fewer hospitalizations, I guess. So we're trending in the right direction, but it's still early. But on the other hand, the longer we keep this lockdown in place, and I heard a guy just before we started up the podcast was saying, that builds up scar tissue, and it means that even fewer and fewer of these small businesses are going to be able to come back. And it's just, God, there's just no easy answer. There's no definitive course of action. We just have to play it by the numbers and how we feel about things, and watch those trend lines.
Well, the numbers too aren't really going to be the final decider. You said it just a moment ago. Is even if every business in the country opened up tomorrow, people are not going to be going. They're still going to be staying home, and that is going to be true until we have either a cure or some kind of very effective treatment or a vaccine, something, and then we can start approaching normal again. But that again, I bring up that Bo of the fifth column, and he raised this point about a week ago, and just said that it makes no sense at all to go and open up every hair salon and restaurant and arena, because people are not going to be going. Not just the people who might have underlying conditions that make them more susceptible, we spoke to Big T about one of his. People are not going to go out until they feel safe and secure, at least not in the numbers that President Trump would have us think. Let's open the country up tomorrow and then we'll be good. Everything will be just fine.
And I gotta wonder.
It's not that simple.
Yeah, and I gotta wonder too if we would have got the stimulus checks out sooner, and if they were for a greater amount that people could actually survive on, would they be out there protesting and wanting their jobs back quite this soon? You know what I mean?
Good point too. Another good point. We've raised this one in recent podcasts who I think it was Lindsey Graham and one of his Republican cohorts said, well, no, we cannot expand unemployment on top of what they already get every week, because then they're just not going to go back to work. So he's essentially saying Americans by nature are lazy parasites, so let them struggle, let them go bankrupt, let their kids go hungry. It was a sad thing. But yeah, then 1,200. I think I remember a headline. This might be fake news too. We've got to question everything we see nowadays. Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, was quoted as saying that the $1,200 check, the first one you get, was designed to last 8 to 10 weeks.
Yeah, I saw that.
Did you guys see the same thing?
Yeah, I saw that clip. I was like, oh my God. They live in another universe.
Is out.
Yeah.
They do. It's just disconnected. Unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
That's a guy that's never made a turkey sandwich for himself in his entire life, So, man, it's just sad. And yeah, again, I don't know why they didn't start at the bottom of the economic ladder. And, that I like what the Democrats have been saying recently, that every American below a certain income level last year will get $2,000 a month free and clear for at least 3 months. And then we'll see where we are. And if we need to approve it again, we will. We'll extend it again. But that would at least keep people from starving, and it would keep people from being evicted, and that,
and from going back out into the world too soon.
Yeah, and yeah. I don't know what would you do with $2,000 a month, Big T?
Vegas just went and opened up. Honestly, I'm really close to needing a new car. Any money I'm going to get is going to be going towards a new car in the next 6 months.
Yeah, and you're one of countless examples just like that. New car, or the kid. I was just going to put braces on my 12-year-old, but now I can't. Countless examples.
I got a glimmer of hope for you. Yeah. If we're on the glimmer of hope part of this podcast.
I love those. Yeah.
Okay, so glimmers. My 2 glimmers of hope for this podcast were the New York hospitalization is down, the trend line is going in the right direction, and the other glimmer of hope is a Chicago hospital treating severe COVID-19 patients. They have an antiviral medicine that is showing promise. So this is an antiviral treatment that is showing promise out there in Chicago. So let's hope that continues. Yeah.
Great news. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. I certainly don't mean to pee on your parade there. The one dark thing I heard, I think we mentioned this in a recent podcast, is in South Korea, they retested 19 people who had recovered and found out they were infected again. And so, but that doesn't really tell us anything. We can't put any money in the bank on that, because does that mean that they never were really fully recovered and they just couldn't detect the virus? Or did they recover and get reinfected, meaning we don't know who's going to be immune and who won't be? It really didn't tell us anything we can bank on, but it's well, and as I said, I don't know if Big T knows this, but my niece, who tested positive on March 15 or 18, she went through all the protocols and went through all the checklists and everything about when you can consider yourself recovered, and then spent this last weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and today, down in Southern Nevada with her mom and stepdad and family. And I just wonder how much of a risk there was there. Did she go in and get fully cleared? You are good. Or was there a little bit of virus still hiding out in her? And now it's down in my sister's house, down in Southern Nevada. It's just tricky stuff. It's unsettling, and that's why people are freaking out so much about this kind of thing, is we just don't know.
Hey, can you imagine me getting it and giving it to my mom or something? I couldn't even live with that.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I think about that every time I have to go to the grocery store or Costco. It's like, what could I be possibly bringing back to my wife and my daughter? It messes with your head.
Yeah, it's scary stuff. And while we're on the subject of how heartbreaking it would be to transmit it to somebody vulnerable, and we watch them either suffer or die. Please remember the name Bill Mitchell. Have you guys heard this name, seen it on Twitter or anything? I know nothing about. So you look out for Bill Mitchell on social media. He has put out so far 2 of the most ignorant tweets that you could possibly put out there. And I guess what I'm saying is, gentlemen, listeners, please brace yourself for the ignorance that's coming our way, because it's already starting to appear. And if I may dominate for just a sec, I'll tell you what these 2 tweets were. The first one, Mangel, I think I mentioned our last cast. He said he was comparing the number of infected and the number of dead from COVID-19 to H1N1 back in, when was that, 2009 or 10, something like that. So this Bill Mitchell was comparing the number of infected and the number of perished between the current COVID-19 and H1N1. And the numbers with H1N1 were much higher, I guess, according to his tweet. I haven't researched those numbers myself, but he essentially was saying, well, COVID-19 only has to infect 1 billion more people to be on par with H1N1. And yet we didn't wreck the economy like we have over COVID-19. What's the problem? And, somebody out there gave a brilliant response. Well, we've done a lot of stay-at-home measures and mitigation measures so that we won't reach those type of numbers, you idiot. That sort of a deal.
I believe a lot of those H1N1 numbers came over almost a year as opposed to 4 or 5 months?
Yeah, less than 4 months. That's another good point. Yeah.
So yeah, that's interesting. I saw a video on the different countries and how they're all approaching this pandemic, and I guess Sweden has decided to not do anything. So they still have schools in session, they still have restaurants open, but their numbers are like way higher as far as like the number of deaths per million is like 3 or 4 times as high as countries that are taking action and staying home and stuff.
So we know this stuff is working. We know it's working.
It is working, but at what cost? That's what everyone's getting upset about now, because people are out of work, man. Millions and millions of people out of work, losing health care, having to go to food banks to have their fridge filled so they get that good feeling, that I got today, because I have enough money to go and buy food, thankfully. A lot of people don't.
Yeah. It's such a, I don't know, it's one of those heartbreaking things because, and so frustrating, because it does not have an obvious answer. There is no, people can pick on Trump all they want, or they can praise him all they want. But he's as clueless as we are, really, on what to do. What's the right thing to do
probably
right now.
More clueless, because he doesn't give it as much thought he doesn't give it as much thought as we just did on this podcast. Let's be real.
Yeah, this is true. And notice he only wants to liberate the states that have Democrat governors, not Republican governors. Minnesota, Michigan, and Virginia. He's a liberate Minnesota, liberate Michigan.
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
Exactly. He's an idiot. And he just cares about re-election and getting the economy going so he can have better numbers.
Yeah. But this Bill Mitchell, I wanted to mention the second tweet. And this one's even easier. This one's even easier for me to express and more clearly. I think it was just yesterday when he tweeted, every year our hospital system treats 600,000 cases of the flu, and yet a few thousand COVID-19 overwhelms the system. To me, this is just how we've overreacted and overhyped it. And again, some brilliant retweet appeared right below. I don't understand how it is McDonald's can sell 2 billion hamburgers every year, and yet when I order only 5 million hamburgers at the drive-thru, it seems to overwhelm their system.
I saw that.
Yeah, it was clever, wasn't it? So you did see Bill Mitchell's name then. Did you remember seeing Bill Mitchell's name on that first tweet?
I don't have Twitter. I just remember seeing that on the MSN front news page.
Yeah, but let's remember that guy's name and shame him for coming down too far on one side and not at least debating it like we have for the past 20 minutes, looking at pros and cons and what a challenge this is.
Yeah, I am seeing a pretty consistent opinion that everybody who wants to open up, not everybody, the majority of people who want to open back up the economy are more Republican, leaning towards Republican than Democrat. Most of the Democrats are a little more conservative with wanting to stay home and get through this. Is that just I'm saying that too. Yeah, I'm definitely. How about you, Main Joe?
Well,
mainly Republicans who want to open things up.
Judging from the protest signs I saw, because whenever I saw one on the videos I was watching, I paused the video and I wrote it down. And yeah, I guess that would be true. And they also said in the poll they did, 2/3 of Americans say reopening now is too fast, and 1/3 say that we're not reopening fast enough. So it's a 2/3, 1/3 split.
Yeah.
So these are the minorities out there that Trump is supporting and egging on, and they're not necessarily the what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. Some of these signs, they just didn't seem like they were some of the brightest people out there with no masks on, mingling close by, protesting with their signs. It's like here's some of the signs they had, and see if you can help me make sense of some of these, because some of these just didn't even make sense to me. So this first one I find I don't understand it. He says the sign said, "My inherent rights don't end where your fear begin."
Yeah, things like that.
What does that mean?
Yes, yeah. And then, of course, a lot of people are using the current climate to talk about or bring up the issue of abortion. They would show, the picture of like 6 or 8 men standing on the steps of a Capitol, waving a flag, and maybe they're armed or whatever, and they're protesting the lockdown. And you got to stay at home and keep yourself safe so you don't infect anybody else. And then the caption would be, "These men really don't like it when the government tells them what to do with their bodies." And, it's kind of poignant,
Yeah. Good point, dude. Yeah. I mean, and here's another sign said, "Stop the tyranny, fire Fauci." It's like, he's the only one. Fauci. Yeah, he's the only one making any kind of sense and giving us the straight scoop on any of this, Yeah. We have the right to work. Yeah, you have the right to work. Go out there and work then. I don't know, what are you waiting for? I mean, if you're waiting for your job, if you're waiting for your employer to fire up the place where you work, then that might be a problem, because maybe he's not ready to do that yet, because he's got some liability there too, But you can go dig a ditch. If you want to go dig a ditch, go work. I worked in my yard today. That was fun.
Yeah. And once again, opening things up, open up businesses is not the cure. It's not the solution. Yeah. People are not going to be swarming back, and things are not just going to pick right up. It's much more nuanced and complex than that.
It could hurt your employer more if he's got to keep it open and employ you, and no one's coming out to get their hair cut or whatever. Then what? So I don't know. Anyway.
Well, and the Big T would be the person with first-hand knowledge to that. I mean, Big T, entire staff of, I forget what you said it was, 18 or 20, came back tomorrow. What would happen? Would there be work for all of them?
No, there wouldn't be. There'd probably be work for another 3 or 4 people, realistically. But the biggest problem I would have is if the current staff members would be very apprehensive about allowing the other people in, because they don't know how close, how tightly they've kept themselves, how other people have been exposed.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah.
Well,
No,
Mojo is getting
once
some
again.
ice. I want to tell you guys about one of my favorite little quotes I got from the Stephen Colbert's little show. This is what he
I
said.
love it.
He said in the last month, 22 million Americans have been laid off, and unfortunately, Donald Trump is not one of them.
It was not one of I saw that too.
I
Yeah.
laughed out loud. That was good.
I've been starting to really enjoy a lot of these late night hosts doing these home based shows.
Mm-hmm.
At first, I was thinking, oh man, I really miss the audience. I didn't realize how much I missed the audience, but I'm really starting to enjoy Seth Meyers. He has made me laugh. Colbert, his Donald Trump's voice, it makes me crack up every time.
Oh yeah,
And
Seth
he
Meyers.
does it pretty much every
Seth Meyers' voice
Yeah.
is good too. I like his Donald Trump. That's pretty good.
Yeah, his is good too. And Colbert did one that it made me belly laugh. I laughed out loud. Not just a small chuckle, but he said it was something along the lines of Donald Trump, President Trump was being briefed on some recent numbers, and I guess the numbers were the decreases in hospitalizations in New York over a 2-day period. And so Colbert said, I can see it now. Somebody runs into the Oval Office with this great news and says, Mr. President Trump, we've got some great news for you. And Colbert says, what is it? There's a 21-piece McNuggets now? It was really funny, man. Those guys are so clever. So fun to listen to. And, yeah. And so I will admit, I agree with some of our other more conservative friends like Dojo and Shy Joe that if all you do every show is bash Trump, it gets old. It really can get worn and tired and played out. But recently, I can listen to people bash Trump all day long. And it's just my personal feelings towards the guy. I really dislike him as a human and as president.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I definitely have not got tired of those guys bashing Trump every single episode. I don't know why. Maybe like Mojo, I just hate Trump that much that it just doesn't bother me. It never gets old.
Yeah. Well, I've known Big T for so many years now, decades, and he's always taken the smart approach that, if we're having a jam session, before the jam starts, or I'm just having a get together at my house, as soon as politics comes up, Big T, he finds an excuse to get up and go get a beer and talk to somebody else. He does not get involved in the quagmire, the muddiness, and even sometimes the heated exchanges that can happen. I've had several with Shy Joe over the years. And Big T, you get a 2 Joe's salute for staying out of the politics stuff. You still that way, even in today's climate?
I've always equated to it that it's like a taste great, less filling argument. Shy Joe's not going to change my opinion, and I'm not going to change his. So what's the point of arguing about?
Yeah, very true, very true. And you save yourself a few blood pressure points there, because I let it get to me sometimes where again, I'll go back to Sam Harris, asking a great question. That if you're talking with some people, whether it's politics or religion or medicine, economy, whatever it is, if you're talking with somebody who does not value facts and evidence and logic, then what facts or evidence or logical argument can you put forward that would make them value these things? You can't do it. You might as well be talking to a cat, trying to teach a dog how to do calculus. It's just not going to get through. And it's kind of where we are with political discourse, and you're wise to just avoid it. And hope that we get somebody good in there. I mean, what good does it do really for a bunch of people to sit around and argue about politics in a living room in Salt Lake Valley? We're not influencing any senatorial votes, or we're not changing political winds at all. All we're doing is airing grievances and getting ourselves worked up. And that's really all we're doing. We're not changing the landscape.
I guess it's hard not to notice some of it, because there's so much new negatives that you can say about Trump every week. It just pours out.
Yeah, very true. Very true. But I found actually, I'm grateful to President Trump for one thing, is that when I see on social media that someone like Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham will make a post, and if I'm lucky enough to be one of the first people to comment, then of course I get attacked by all their supporters, just one after another. And I'm grateful to President Trump now because I can use his exact quotes in response when they ask me a question. And, a great example was 3 or 4 days ago, Hannity made some claim about Fauci or Pelosi or something. And I wrote a response, and of course it was critical of Hannity and Trump. And I started getting attacked. And one of the people attacking me said, "Well, how come you keep evading my questions about hating President Trump so much? Why won't you tell us? Are you just afraid to tell us why you hate President Trump so much?" And all I had to do was say, "Well, I'm going to avoid it because just like President Trump, I don't take responsibility at all." And I can stop right there. I didn't have to get more nuance than that. I didn't have to keep typing and look up some facts or figures. I could just quote the man directly. And when you do that, it doesn't change anybody's minds, but at least it stops them a little bit in their tracks. They're forced to reflect at least slightly. Well, except one, a guy named Mike Rosen. I have no idea who he is or where he lives. He's somewhere in the world. And he was asking why I bash Hannity and Laura Ingraham so much. And I said, well, one of the reasons is they are parroting President Trump's support for the chloroquine treatment for COVID-19, hydroxychloroquine. Did I say that right, Angel?
I don't know, something like that,
Yeah. So this Mark Rosen said, well, we know it works. There are thousands of scientists and doctors out there saying this stuff works.
Oh, really?
And I kept pressing him. Yeah, thousands. And I said, okay, Mike Rosen, give me one, just one that I can go research and look at some evidence. And he said something so asinine. It was like, well, Bill Redding reviewed this article. Thousands of scientists say hydrochloroquine works or whatever it is. And I said, really, Mike, that's your evidence then. That's what you're going to. So when you get people that delusional, that unfounded, go ahead, Major.
What's their source? National Enquirer? You gotta put some stock in what the source is. That's why when I take notes, I always try to put down where I got that quote from or that stat from. And granted, a lot of these, like the Washington Post and the New York Times, and they've all got blood on their hands. They're not angels. They get it wrong sometimes and are slow to correct themselves. It happens, but they're still kind of like the best we have as far as credible journalists out there.
Yeah, and when you mention National Enquirer, though, those aren't dangerous ones. I think in London it's the World Daily News, and over here, of course, National Enquirer or Star magazine. Some of those are not the dangerous ones. Those already have that milky stigma of being just sensationalistic alien autopsy, bat boy type of crap that nobody really takes seriously, or not nobody, but very few. The dangerous ones are like the Breitbart. And I don't know if you guys have seen on YouTube now, we get a lot of the Epoch Times. Have you seen some of those ads?
They've been trying to get me to click on their shit for a long time now.
A long time, yeah. And they present themselves not at all like a National Enquirer or a Star. They purport to be serious
exactly
about, look what really happened in the Russia hoax investigation.
Right.
So that'll get a lot more of these gun-toting knuckle draggers to take them seriously. I should stop saying gun-toting. I don't oppose ownership of guns. I should stop doing that. But
you're just painting a picture. I know what you mean when you say that. I mean,
I know you mean. Yeah, my stepdad, stepbrother, who you're referring to, and I still like him. even though they are toting knuckle draggers.
Yeah. Well, we've got two members of our jam group who I love like brothers now that I've gotten to know them, and they are absolute Trump supporters. And one of them went so far at one of our last jams to say something. I'm going to butcher it, so I won't even try to be funny. But it was about how Romney should go back to Massachusetts or something like that. He's that big of a Trump supporter that any voice speaking against Trump should be immediately ignored and banished and exiled. And I love the guy. I golf with him. I've been to his house. He's been to my house many times, and I love his company. But, man, I could not be more diametrically opposed to his politics.
Yeah, what is it? Why can't people take criticism? Why can't they discuss things without getting all bent out of shape? And I don't know. I don't understand it. Like we were just talking about how BigT will get up and get himself a beer when talking turns political. And I can understand that. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, if you don't engage and just kind of find out where people are, I'm not asking you who you're voting for to get in an argument with you. I want to know real reasons why you want to vote for this guy. How are you thinking about who's going to get your vote this year? And speaking of that, we talked a little bit with your niece about that and who she's voting for and why, and it was very enlightening. And I'd like to pin Big T down and say, Big T, what are your thoughts on the upcoming November election? Who do you think you might be voting for?
I have no idea yet. I got to do a lot of research because certainly not a Trump fan. I need to know a little more about Biden and who else is in there. I've always considered myself a bit of a middle of the roader. Mm-hmm. I voted for a Republican. I voted for a Democrat. It all depends on their policies.
Yeah. Okay.
Honestly, if Mitt Romney was running against Hillary Clinton, I would vote for Mitt Romney.
Okay.
Great point. Great question. Yeah. See, now that shows me. Oh, go ahead, Big T. Please
sorry. Go ahead.
No, I talk too damn much, man. It's your turn.
I honestly don't know enough about Biden to have a real educated opinion on him yet.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. So that's cool. See, that's as easy as it gets. I mean, it doesn't have to be this big old argument or anything. It's like, I don't know why political conversations have to turn so ugly so quick. But I think it's because some people, like our friend at the gym, they just are so locked down. They've got their blinders on. They're not able to kind of take in other information and consider other points of view and just really, really give them some consideration.
Yeah. And I'm guilty there also. Absolutely guilty.
I fall into that sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just a moment ago, we all know Big T. He's a reasonable, rational guy, and he studies things, and he's smarter than average in one particular thing, is he will not commit himself until it has to be committed. In other words, he won't tell you who he's voting for until he casts the vote. Then he'll tell you who he did vote for, but he leaves it open. He keeps things on the table. And keeps, and that's where I am guilty of narrow-mindedness, where he says, I'm not sure what I'm going to do this November. My first gut reaction is, how could you even consider possibly not voting against Trump? How could you even do that? And that shows my narrow-mindedness. And, I'm doing my best to get away from that, but I'm failing.
I can honestly say, my choices would be a Democrat or an independent. It would never be Trump.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, right on. And again, I was only calling myself out for being narrow-minded, Big T, not you for considering that you might vote. Not at all. And if we could step back a little bit. Main Joe and our two Czech Joe friends who come to our jams and who we love to hang out with. And we respect them, admire them. We consider them good friends. I can kind of see why they are so staunchly Republican from one viewpoint, is they came from Czechoslovakia back at a time when it was under the Iron Curtain, and you were told every day what to think, what you could do, the industries you could work in. Here's your food ration coupons for the week, or however extreme it became. Mm-hmm. I can understand that, but the part that frustrates me is I certainly understand why they would rebel against that system of government, but over here they're thinking it is Republicans who rebel against that kind of government, and Democrats want that kind of government. And that is just wrong.
Yeah.
It's just dead wrong. The Democrats don't want FEMA camps. The Democrats don't want to take away your Second Amendment right. They just want some study, at least, into gun violence. They don't want to take away your right to worship. They just want to keep it out of government, these types of things. And so it can get frustrating. Mm-hmm. The Republicans in America today are not the safeguard against tyranny or the next Hitler. They are not. In fact, they're more likely to bring about the next totalitarian, authoritarian figure. They've proven it in the past 3 years.
Dude, I sent you that article I found from that book, How We Fucked It All Up. And it sent chills down my spine how similar that story about Hitler sounded to Trump. And basically what I'm getting at is just how inept he was. Hitler wasn't no evil genius, this book, or this excerpt from this book said. He was a bumbling idiot, similar to Trump. And he was
lazy.
Yeah, and people would just kind of let him go through and thinking they could control him and blah, blah, blah. And didn't you think it was really similar to the Trump thing? And I was like, wow.
In many ways. Many ways.
Oh, this is not good. And with our checks and balances being as strained as they are, with McConnell in there doing his thing, it's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, anytime we bring up a Hitler comparison, of course, we have to invoke Godwin's law, or at least refute Godwin's law, and say we're not comparing Trump to Hitler across the board. I mean, Hitler is a one-off. He's a phenomenon of human history, one of a kind. That's it. But the similarities that he brought up were astounding.
Yeah.
And really, the only place where Hitler was not lazy, the place where he was actually brilliant, the only one, was public oratory. Standing in front of a crowd and shouting and screaming and sweating and saying things to rile people up. And especially, most importantly, what Hitler did was gave people a target for their hate, the Jews. Who is Trump's target? The media. That's really his main target.
Immigrants.
Immigrants
at the southern border. Let's be specific.
There we go. And also, really, anybody who doesn't fall right lockstep behind him is a loser, and you're never gonna make it. You'll never get anywhere. So he has given us numerous targets. But his main one is just negative press coverage to Trump. Was like a Jew to Hitler. That is something he cannot abide, will not abide.
Criticism of any kind. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Any kind of criticism. That's right. But there again, that's where the staunch Republicans today, the Republican supporters, get it wrong. And they just don't realize that our Constitution will not allow someone like Hitler to come into power and start passing the Nuremberg laws and the Resettlement Acts and things like that. That just simply cannot happen with our Constitution. When Hitler rose to power, there was mass unemployment, starvation, inflation through the roof. All of these things, people were just desperate for anybody who could get up and give a speech and rile them up. And Trump doesn't have that. The economy was going fine under Obama. It was good for President Trump's first couple of years. And, you can't blame coronavirus on him, for devastating the economy. He didn't cause that. But So that we're very fortunate that America has safeguards in place, and many countries around the world have safeguards in place where Hitler simply could not happen.
Once again, I admire your optimism, dude. I'm not quite as optimistic as you that our system is so fail-safe, because he's fast-tracking judges left, right, and center. The Supreme Court has already said the Supreme Court has already said that corporations are people, and that's one of the reasons why I think Democrats are Republican light. They're corporatists, just like Republicans are. That's why I'm thinking. That's why I don't, doesn't have his mind made up yet. I can see why. The parties aren't all that different. He's going to look at policy and planks and go from there. I don't know, man. I think we better be careful and we better be vigilant and keep our eyes open. I think things can happen.
You make great content with statements like that, Main Joe, because nobody wants to hear three people just all talking the same thing and supporting the same topic. You gave a great counterpoint right there, and let me join you in the dark side, if you will, of the dark things that could happen. Now again, back in the case of Hitler, things were so extreme back then. We had just seen a devastating world war. There was a Great Depression, starvation, inflation, all these things. No coherent, cohesive political structure that could wield power in Germany. So yeah, things were pretty ripe for someone like Hitler. And the steps he took, it's not like he took power with 1,000 tiny cuts. He took bold measures, huge movements, essentially denying Jews the ability to work in medicine and law or education, massive steps like that. That could never happen here in America, at least not right now, the way our government's run. But the dark side, the tiny little cuts that Trump has put in place, again, distrusting any media that's critical of him. That's a big one. Undermining a lot of the institutions that Republicans used to say they were really in support of, like intelligence and law enforcement things.
Health. He's undermining Fauci.
And Fauci, the guy that's giving us straight dope on the outbreak. He did retweet that fire Fauci thing.
And he's saying liberate Michigan, liberate Minnesota, liberate Virginia. That's basically undermining Fauci, isn't it?
Yeah. Now imagine Trump doing those things in an environment where World War and there's a Great Depression going on and hyperinflation and starvation and riots in the street. Then we could really, really worry. But I guess I'm being the optimist again. But, you raise great content right there. Is we can see some similarities.
Lots of similarities.
Hitler only had to swing his sword about half a dozen times. Trump would have to swing it 10,000 times, and to achieve some of the same authoritarian goals and objectives.
So I heard on Seth Meyers' show that Trump's approval rating has dropped as the coronavirus pandemic has continued and the economic crisis has continued. And this is the first I've heard of this. Previously, I've heard all his numbers were up. So have you guys heard this?
BigT.
I have not heard current approval rating. I have heard a lot of discontent about his response and his wanting to open up the economy. About people, I believe it'll cause a big spike in the virus.
Yeah. Well, as far as approval ratings, Main Joe, I echo what you said. I saw some headlines that said he saw a slight bump in the early stages, but in the past week or two, he's dropped like 4 or 5 points. So I'm seeing the same things you are, and I'm just I guess I am the eternal optimist that enough people are going to wake up, and the people who voted for Obama twice and then voted for Trump are going to say, "Oh, I made a huge mistake," and boy, did I make a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
The sad part there is the Democrats might make the exact mistake that Hillary Clinton made. And that was just assuming I'm running against Donald Trump. Of course I'm going to win. Of course I will. I think that was Hitler's main fatal flaw. She didn't have to go to Michigan or Wisconsin or Pennsylvania. It's Donald Trump. Of course I'm going to win. So now we've had 3 years of Trump and his porn stars and his tax cut for billionaires, and now this coronavirus response and, all these things and many others. And so now the Democrats are going to fall into that same content, lackadaisical, well, of course I'm going to beat President Trump now. Look what he's done. People hate the guy. I really worry that Biden, let's assume Biden, and the DNC as a whole are going to get too complacent, and Trump will squeak out another victory, this time by 30,000 total votes instead of 70,000 like it was last time, or 78,000. What do you guys think on that? Could the Democrats could blow this? Would you agree?
Yes, I think it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
So far, what I'm seeing, the trend lines, it's going to be a repeat of 2016.
Yeah, I do agree that it's not.
The situation's fluid, however, and anything could happen from between here and November. But as where I'm sitting right now, I'm not overly optimistic that Biden can beat Trump.
And I'm not either. I'm really not either. He's shown such decline in so many different ways that it's like 1 out of 10. One appearance on a talk show or at a speech or rally.
It's so weird.
I'll see him be okay, and the other 9, he'll totally trail off and lose. I'm waiting for him to visit Salt Lake City and say, "I love the people of Des Moines. I love Des Moines."
However,
I'm waiting for him to do that.
However, if it was Bernie that had the nomination at this point, not Biden, I would be way more optimistic. I would be pumped. I would be psyched.
Yeah.
I would be like, yeah.
Well, Bernie ran as vice president.
Bad move.
That would help me. I would probably vote for Biden in that case.
I would too. Let me clarify. I would vote for that also. But,
however,
the strategy to victory, the path to victory, we're taking into account a lot of the young voters and the disaffected and people who voted for Obama twice and then voted for Trump. We're trying to get them in place. And like our friend Rasta Joe said, if Biden picks as his running mate, and forgive me for being I'm going to use identity politics here, but if he picks another elderly white guy to run as his VP, then kiss it goodbye. He's done. And he needs an Andrew Yang or an Amy Klobuchar or even an Elizabeth Warren or Tulsi Gabbard. He's got to have something to unify the younger voters.
I just don't think it's very wise to have 2 75-plus-year-old people in the ticket. I just don't think that works. However, Bernie's numbers with young people are pretty good, so
you're right.
That could actually work, but I just don't think it's very wise. I don't know.
I don't either.
Because who's third in line? Is it Pelosi or is it McConnell? I don't know.
Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, is third in line to the presidency. If Biden and Bernie both drop dead of a heart attack within a week of one another, then we have President Pelosi.
Who's also 70 years old, isn't she? 70-something?
Yeah, 70 plus, yeah. Isn't that funny, too? Not to jump topics too quick, but you hear the American dream is to retire at 55.
Yeah.
And we've got 78-year-olds in the Senate and running for president.
It's crazy. They obviously have the means to retire, too. I would be so retired, it wouldn't even be funny, man. I'd be on my porch just having some kid, pick up that stick over there and throw it in the green can, will you?
Yeah, exactly. I'd be strumming my guitar and drinking Lynchburg lemonade, and these people want to be in politics. And there we kind of go back to a point we made, Main Joe, recently. Bernie, I think, is still in the game because he so fully believes in his platforms and what he's doing, and he's been consistent.
True.
The the vast majority of them stay in the game because they just love walking in the cushy carpets down the corridors of power and the free travel.
Well, I think they're so. What's the word they use for Trump all the time? He's narcissistic, but he's just they're social animals. They need that applause. They need that approval. They need that all eyes on me kind of thing. I forget what the word is for that.
Yeah.
Maybe it is narcissist. I don't know.
Yes, that is it. From the old Greek mythology, a young man named Narcissus, and he stared at his own reflection in a pond and became so enamored of his own reflection that he eventually starved to death because he could not take his eyes off his own reflection.
Wow. Well, that definitely fits Trump. I don't know if it fits Bernie so much, but it fits Biden pretty well too, I think.
Mm-hmm. And Hillary to a T. She just thought she was the next one. It's my turn now. It's my turn to be president. I've been doing this for 34 years. It's my turn. I don't know. The Abraham Lincolns are pretty few and far between.
I think we missed one here. He ran twice, and we missed him both times, man. It's
twice we missed him.
Kind of sad.
Yeah.
So, guys, we just hit the hour mark. So I'm okay continuing because I still think there's some things we could talk about. But if we'd like to wrap it up, I got a couple. I'm okay with that too.
Yeah.
And I would like to get.
What do you think of Big T?
I would like to get Big T a little bit more involved here. We're kind of dominating a little too much. Maybe.
Yeah.
What's on your mind, Big T? What can we talk about? What's on your mind? What floats your boat? What are you seeing on YouTube? What's going on in your life?
I've just been sucking it all in.
Big T's always good about bringing up good subjects. He gives a perspective that people might not have thought about before.
That's pretty much all my notes. I've been kind of trying to lay off the videos a little bit because they've been kind of depressing and I've been kind of depressed. So I wanted to lay off some of that stuff. But I've covered everything I wanted to cover. Other than the only thing I didn't talk about is meat shortages are probably going to happen in the near future. They said it's not going to be so much that you can't get meat, but it's the variety of meat, the different types of products out on the shelf probably won't be there. And I went to Smith's, I think, was it today or yesterday? And still no toilet paper. They had a better selection of Kleenex. They had no paper towels still. The soup selection was better. The yogurt was stocked. The cheese was stocked. So everything there was pretty good. The items in the store shelves seem to be slowly but surely coming back now.
You know, the big one I saw there, Main Joe, was up in either North or South Dakota, a pork processing plant called Smithfield. Is this one of the ones you might be referring to?
Yes, it's one of the biggest pork processors in the U.S.
Yeah, and they've closed not just one. I think I saw a headline they closed like 4 or 5 plants.
Because workers
and the reason being,
go ahead.
Is they out of like 620 employees at one plant, like 380 of them tested positive.
Wow!
And were showing symptoms. You know, I mean, that's huge. That's now there's a good argument against opening things back up as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and you know we've got another stat I have is something about where was it in the UK? 1/3 of all national health staff tested were positive for COVID-19. So
amazing statistics there. What was another one I saw recently? Just a thought I had, and this is me trying to puff my chest out and show how fair-minded I am. You know, take that with a grain of salt. But I want to do a little salute to Governor Abbott down in Texas. He's of course a Trump supporter. He's Republican through and through.
We're giving a Joe salute out to a Republican governor?
Yeah, believe it or not.
Lay it on me.
So he of course wants to open the economy back up and get people back to work and get paychecks flowing, and we all support that, as you know, within reason.
Yeah.
But he did say that all public schools are going to remain shuttered for the rest of the school year. And I thought, okay, there's some sense right there. There's some rationale. Because that is really our most, I don't want to say our most vulnerable population, but the kids that are always running around the playground and crawling around on the floors in malls and, getting filthy shit on their hands all the time, those are the most likely to carry and transmit, even if they don't have symptoms.
Call them super spreaders.
Yeah, exactly right. So
and
that's a sensible step.
Utah's made that call as well. My daughter got news like a week or so ago that the school year is basically done. They're going to finish it off online, and that's it.
That's good. Yeah.
So I feel sorry for people that are missing their prom. They're missing their, my daughter was going to be on the golf team, so she didn't get to be on the golf team because right before the season started,
bummer.
they canceled the golf season. And so, there's a lot of heartache out there for these kids and college students probably too. I mean, like I saw a guy who graduated from the U.S. Air Force Academy. I guess Pence went there and actually, gave a speech during their ceremony. And they were keeping social distancing and all that, but still they were gathered together. And that one guy was like crying because his parents and his family couldn't be there to see him graduate from the academy, So,
yeah. And this one that brings Big T back into the fold is he doesn't have kids of his own, but he's got a number of nephews. And do you also have nieces, Big T, or just nephews?
Two nephews. One is 7 and just left her a few minutes ago, and the other is 3 weeks old.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we often, Big T is not a big social media guy. He doesn't like to put himself out there. He's one of the people I like who doesn't search for a spotlight. Look at me, look at my lunch, look at how cool my skis are and stuff like that. When he does post, it's usually about time he spends with his nephews. And so that opens you up there, Big T. I mean, if the schools open back up and your 7-year-old nephew, he could transmit it to you and not even know it, not have a clue. And then, with some of the treatments you're on for MS and the fact that you've not enjoyed smoking your lungs at all ever, you're I would say, would you agree? You're in a high risk demographic for COVID-19.
Absolutely. Incredibly high risk.
Mm-hmm. So, again, to Joe salute to Governor Abbott, Republican from Texas. Good call on keeping the schools shuttered, at least for right now. We might see, we're all hoping for a dramatic announcement or dramatic changes in the graphs that we see where, like SARS. I don't know if you guys saw this interview between Dr. Fauci and Laura Ingraham. Did you guys happen to see that this last week? And so Laura Ingraham was spreading her usual ignorance, and she said, she's one of the staples now. I think she's just one peg below Hannity in terms of revenue.
Not a news program. She's an opinion program, but they don't ever clarify that. But
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, they call it Fox News Special Alert. But they're just opinion, and that's how they avoid the First Amendment stuff. But she had Dr. Fauci on, and then she was raising different talking points like, well, we still don't have a vaccine or a cure for HIV/AIDS, and yet we didn't shut down the economy. And what about SARS? SARS was lethal. It killed many, many people. And I don't think we ever got a vaccine for that, So why are we panicking so much about COVID-19? And Fauci was brilliant. And he just really showed off his training, his years of medical training. And he said, well, HIV, it's true. We don't have a cure for that, nor do we have a vaccine to prevent it from attacking you. But we do have, and he used these very words. He said, we have spectacularly effective treatments for HIV, whereas 30 years ago, it was pretty much a death sentence within 18 months. Now you have people living with it for 20 years, like Magic Johnson. And we know they still have it, but it's at undetectable levels, and we've mitigated. Then he said with SARS, what we had there is we were in the process of developing a vaccine, and then suddenly it disappeared. And he said, I have no explanation for why it disappeared. Maybe it mutated again where it couldn't really attack humans. But for whatever reason, it did not make fiscal sense for us to continue developing the vaccine for a virus that disappeared. He says COVID-19 is a different animal altogether. And what makes this one so unique is the efficiency with which it's transmitted. We haven't, he said in his 42-year career, he's never seen one that is so effectively and efficiently transmits from human to human, whether it's from a doorknob or a kiss. It doesn't matter. He said that's what makes this one new, and why we can't take our foot off the gas, not at this point.
Good points. Good points. Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's a silent spreader. You can spread it when you're not showing symptoms. I believe SARS, if you were showing symptoms, then they could. It was just easier to detect. This one's much more difficult to detect. And when the Trump administration dropped the ball on the whole testing piece of it, and they're still trying to play catch up with the testing piece of it, it's just next to impossible to contain. At this point, I don't think we can contain it anymore. I don't think that's an option. I mean, we got to keep trying to track it and understand it better and how it transmits and all that. But as far as containing it, I don't think we can. And I think your niece would even attest to the fact to how easy it can spread, or how easy she caught it. I mean, she just talked to someone on the plane. I mean, she never said that person coughed in their face or sneezed in their face or anything like that. And she was probably had a good foot or two between them when they were talking, but she still ended up catching it.
Still, and it might not have been talking with somebody. She might have put her hand on the armrest between the seats
and then
touch her nose.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how easily this one's transmitted. It's very effective. It's amazing stuff. Have you guys spent any time binging some of these outbreak movies? You know, about viruses. Like,
why would I do that? Hell no.
Someone recently called Outbreak with Dustin Hoffman and Rene Russo, Cuba Gooding Jr., Kevin Spacey, one of his early roles. And I would say 90% of it was really pretty good in terms of the edge of your seat and how deadly viruses can be and how they can change to become even more deadly over a short period of time. But, I probably shouldn't bring that up.
Well, I just don't need that in my life right now. I'm living it. Why do I need to watch it? I've been leaning more toward comedians and things. Tom Segura has a new Netflix special out that's pretty good. I've watched that. And
I just saw that. That was great. Yeah. I've been getting into Jim Gaffigan.
Me too.
He's been around.
I just recently subscribed to him because he's starting to share his family with us now, and he's starting to do a lot of from home videos and before they mealtime videos, and it's just their kids are just hilarious, and he's hilarious. So yeah, I've been getting into him now too.
He appears every Sunday recently ever since the quarantine. He's appeared on CBS Sunday Morning.
Really?
You guys happen to watch that show?
No.
Yeah. Conga Joe is the first one to alert me to the quality of that show. CBS Sunday Morning, I agree, is the best show on cable or broadcast TV every Sunday. I love watching who they bring on and who they talk to and things they explore. I just love it. And Gaffigan, and they've had a 4 or 5 minute spot for Jim Gaffigan every Sunday. And it wasn't today, I think it was last week, where he said something so funny. He said, during this lockdown, we're in, it's not a 1-bedroom apartment, but it sure feels like it. It's just me and my wife and our 5 kids. And our routine is kind of the same every day. We get up, we eat, we clean, then we argue. But sometimes we mix it up. We'll get up, then we'll argue, then we'll eat, and then we'll clean. You know, it's just great stuff. He's a very relatable person.
Yep, and
friendly and
has
funny.
A great sense of humor. And when you have that many kids and you're quarantined with them like that, you gotta have a sense of humor. And that's where I'm kind of not doing so great with my family situation, because we fight a lot too, and I need to bring in more humor. Maybe that's why I'm listening to Gaffigan these days. I want to give a Two Joes salute to Bill Maher. I don't know if you caught his little clips that he releases on Friday night, Saturday morning from his show.
I did.
But he did this little expose on the media and their crazy headlines and their trying to get people to panic thing. You know, did you see that video?
I did.
I just thought it was really well done. He made some great points, and I think we've talked about this on the podcast many times, because it's one of the things we give Trump a little bit of credit for is this fake news, this media craziness that we're seeing, where you can't count on them. It's hard to separate the BS from the actual facts, and when they run headlines like that, it's just tough. And so I just want to Two Joe salute to Bill Maher. Thank you for putting out that video. Well done. And then the media had it coming.
Yeah. And calm down is what he's saying.
Yes, calm down already. Yeah.
Calm down a bit and realize, you know, you're not stuck at home. You're safe at home. If you're one of the lucky ones who can stay home, you're safe there. You're not stuck there. You're safe there. And, you know, I do appreciate that sort of thing. And I think I can speak to one specific headline that he showed during that segment. It said, I think this was the headline. It's terrifying. Millions more out of work. And then he said, okay, why shouldn't the headline should have just been millions more out of work? Why put it's terrifying right in front of it?
Yeah.
And by the way, who are you quoting right there? Was it President Trump? Was it Speaker Pelosi? Was it the Pope? No. It was an event planner from California. So, you know, not to denigrate event planners, it's amazing what you guys can do with pine cones and silver spray paint. But why put it's terrifying in a headline? You know, it's I don't know. It's human nature. It's what we want to consume. And it's why we have a reality TV show host as president right now.
Yeah.
We love.
Yeah, true.
You know?
Everyone's trying for those clicks, and that's how you get them. But yeah, thank you for sharing that very specific example from that video. I couldn't remember it, but yes, that's exactly what he said. It was very funny. Very true.
Yeah. I don't always agree with Bill Maher, but
I don't either.
To put a percentage to it, I'm going to say 70, 80% of the time, I'll nod my head up and down. Say, yeah, I like where he's going with this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a fan. I like it.
You too, then. You watch his HBO show every week, Big T?
Not every week, but whenever I can.
Yeah. But he had another great segment.
Do you guys have HBO? Do you actually watch his show? Because I only catch the clips on YouTube.
No. Me too. Yeah.
So
you have to watch them in like 8-minute segments, but you can catch the whole show. You just have to
majority of it. You know, majority of it. It's not the whole show.
Not all of it. You're right. Yeah, you can catch his monologue, his interview, and then new rules. I love his new rules.
Yeah,
those are great.
Yeah, very funny.
And when he talked about the apology culture that we're in now, that the liberals are in, did you happen to see the apology culture?
Can't say that I did, but
I'm sorry I didn't.
Remind me.
Steve Martin was the best example of it. It was right after Carrie Fisher, Princess Leia, passed away less than a year ago, I think. And Steve Martin tweeted about his affection and admiration for Carrie Fisher, but he did it wrong, so he got nailed by all the extreme leftist, politically correct apology people. He said, and I can get this pretty much word for word. When I was a young boy and I saw Carrie Fisher in Star Wars, I thought, that's the most beautiful, stunning, astoundingly attractive woman I've ever seen. It turns out she's also incredibly intelligent and bright. and he got ripped apart for mentioning her looks before how smart she is. And even someone like Steve Martin came out a couple days later apologizing up and down for mentioning that he found Carrie Fisher attractive. And that was one of many examples that Bill Maher gave. Chris Hemsworth, Roseanne Arquette, or Patricia Arquette, I forget. All of them just apologizing essentially for being white and straight. And he said that's got to stop. And the funniest part of it, and I'll stop here, I'll end it here. The funniest part was where Bill Maher said, you know what, friend who's black, and I'm going to quote him now, I'm doing all right. You know, I don't need your apologies. I don't need your absolution. I don't need you to protect me. I'm doing all right. You know, all you people out there feeling guilty for being white, don't stop doing that. It's stupid. I'm doing fine. Anybody have a comment on white apology?
Yeah, I think I agree with him on a lot of that. I'm still kind of bent out of shape a little bit about losing Al Franken. He loved that job. He loved being a senator. Yeah. He was a good senator. He took it seriously.
He was.
And
studied topics.
He apologized. You know, and it's similar to this new Biden accusation. It's like, okay, well, if you're not pressing charges, then Biden apologized for whatever she thinks may or may not have happened. I don't know. And let's get on with it, because you're wasting my time. I feel like. I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at right now. But I know it's such a hot button topic because, man, when women are raped and when they are abused like that, taking advantage of like that, it affects them for the rest of their life. It's not nothing. It's not something they get over with tomorrow or the next day. It really packs a wallop, and guys need to understand that.
Yeah, I love that point. And again, I want to compare it to President Trump. So Al Franken had that picture taken of him on the plane where he's pretending he wasn't actually touching the sleeping woman, but he was going to grab her breasts and made a funny face, and he lost his seat in the Senate because of it. And he apologized up and down too, didn't he? You mentioned that, Main Joe. He apologized up and down for making a mistake. And so he loses his Senate seat. Trump's on the bus with Billy Bush talking about grabbing them by their genitals, and they let you do it and he gets elected president after that.
And that's not to mention walking into dressing rooms from the Teen USA pageant and all the other things he did, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I have got the wrap it up signal from my dear wife. And let's go to last thoughts. We'll start with you, Big T. Any last thoughts as we wrap this up?
Oh, I heard it's a total random thought. I heard a Chuck Norris joke.
Nah.
You may have heard it.
Well,
you may have heard it. I heard Chuck Norris about the coronavirus. The coronavirus has been 14 days now.
Yeah. Saw that meme. Somebody posted that to my timeline, actually. I can't get enough Chuck Norris jokes. Do you know any of those? They're just funny because they're not true. I mean, Chuck Norris is not a badass. He could beat me up, sure, but he's a right-wing nut job who's 75 years old now. He's not a badass. Bruce Lee kicked his butt in Return of the Dragon. I love funny jokes. I love those jokes, man. Have you heard some of those, Main Joe, the Chuck Norris jokes?
No, I haven't.
Well, then I'll make it my last thought of the cast evening. So here's a hypothetical question for all you true Americans out there. If Chuck Norris from the movie Delta Force had to fight Chuck Norris from the movie Delta Force 2, who would lose? America.
That's a good one.
That's my favorite Chuck Norris joke. And there are dozens of them. Dozens of Chuck Norris jokes. Listeners, check them out for yourselves, please.
That's pretty good. All right. Well, with that, I will say, America, be vigilant. If you have to go back to work as safe as you can. If you don't have to go back to work, stay put. We're still on the downside of the upper part of that curve. We're trending in the right direction, but we need to be vigilant and keep it going in that direction. So with that, Mojo, I'm going to start the music.
Right on. Wonderful final thought there. Thank you again, Main Joe, for getting us out of our house for an evening, even though we didn't go anywhere. And thank you, everybody, for joining the Two Joes podcast. Big thanks to Big T, Main Joe, for setting it all up like he always does. And we'll see you again soon, hopefully as early as Tuesday. Be safe, everyone.
Thank you.